So I'm very honoured to have in the Design Notes studio the king of Polish gaming, and this is Ignacy Trzewiczek. Ignacy, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good, apart from computers seem to hate me. But so my first question is, and I ask this everyone, and don't feel that you have to be modest. Here is an opportunity for you to brag. So when did you know that you were good at what you do?
You are talking about football or board game design?
I assume you're a better board game designer than a football player, though I've never seen you play.
No, you're right. Unfortunately. Well, I remember moments of obviously after releasing Robinson Crusoe, when I was hearing more and more people praising the game and reaching me about the game. It was very, very nice. And obviously, each designer is very happy and very proud when they see their first game published and on the game shelf. And it's this magical moment when you see your work on a game store, in a game store. And then there's this moment when you actually see people at conventions playing it or approaching you and telling you nice stories about what they had when playing the game. So yes, I think that after Robinson Crusoe, I had this moment. So there was like after releasing 4 or 5 games in English, suddenly this Robinson Crusoe made the splash, and it was very, very nice for me. People are just coming to me at conventions and saying nice things, and this is always nice.
And so, I remember listening to, I think, a Dice Tower podcast, and they were talking about Robinson Crusoe, and they're talking about how good it was. Did you know when you were designing the game that this was going to be the one? Did you think, wow, I think I've really hit on something here? Or was it a total surprise?
This is interesting because I have something broke in my head, and each time I'm doing anything, of course, game design as well, I'm 100% sure that it will win Spiel des Jahres. Like literally, this is something completely, I cannot explain it. Each time I design Robinson Crusoe, I was sure that I'm designing the best game and everybody will prize it and love it and I will get all the awards. And then a year later, I do other game and I have the same perception. This is freaking amazing. I'm so good. People will just, clap me and do me applause every time they play the game. I have a very high self-confidence, I guess. Which is very fun because then sometimes I fail and everybody remembers my failures, like First Martians and Rattle Battle Grab the Loot. And even when I was doing First Martians, I was super sure that it will be a massive hit, and then it wasn't, and it is very difficult to cope with. But yes, it's like with the sportsman on the pitch. You go to the pitch and you are sure that you will win, even if the opposing team is stronger. In theory, you are there to try to fight him. Yes. And I have the same state of mind when I design. I know that Eric Blanc is better. I know that Richard Garfield is better. I know that Bruno Catala is so much better than me. And yet I'm at my desk and I'm sure that this time, oh my God, people will just love it.
And so what is your reaction then when it does fail? Because I've always been very much like a child with this. I take failure very badly and lie in bed for 3 days in tears going, I don't understand. Is that confidence a negative when it comes to failure, or are you quite happy with failure and you just live with it?
This interview goes in a very strange direction because we are discussing my psychics very, very deeply. After releasing game, for instance, I don't watch reviews of my games. Because all reviewers, besides sometimes saying some nice things, they are showing some bad points in the game. And I strongly disagree because this is a great game. So it gets me furious. So I stopped watching reviews of my games and I disagree with the whole world. And I think that First Machine is amazing. I believe that the Rattle Battle is a fun game. And this self-confidence is still with me. So obviously, in terms of the running business, in terms of the creating the new games, I have to do some double check of what I designed, what people are complaining, what I can do better. But then I don't, cry. I don't, read these comments and be super, super sad. I think that I'm right, they are wrong, whatever. So my self-confidence is very, very high.
So who do you listen to then when you're getting advice on a game when it's in development? And, if you're very confident that things are good, who do you listen to when people say, well, maybe you want to look at this?
Yes, sometimes I listen to my wife. She's my playtester and she helps me a lot. And so sometimes I listen to her. but basically no. Like we had this famous in some interviews I was mentioning it already, when my wife played Detective, which became my biggest hit of all time, and she said, Ignacy, this is terrible. Don't publish it. You will regret it. It will be another failure. This game is super boring. Don't do it. And I said, you are wrong. And I published the game. So of course, when and now I'm talking about this in seminars for the young designers. So the whole point is to listen to the playtesters, listen to the feedback they are giving you, but not listening like literally. Like if the guy said that please remove these events, it doesn't mean that you need to remove the events. That means that this guy thinks that something is wrong with the deck. Think about it. Look at this deck from your perspective, but don't listen to him literally. So when I get the feedback from the playtesters, every single particular sentence, I don't care. I just get the noise, like the general perception of what the game, and from that I take the conclusions and change the games.
So there are many people sort of in America and England who know you as Ignacy, owner of Portal Games, designer of Robinson Crusoe, but there's many people who won't know your journey into becoming Ignacy of Portal Games, especially, you know, in the context of post-communist Poland and there being a sort of gaming desert. So could you give us a short sort of summary of how you got from where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, so it all started very simple. I was a student. I didn't have money, like all students, and I needed a job to get some money. Most of the students then work in bars, pubs, doing some night shifts. I came this stupid idea that I will write the role-playing game adventure. It was for the Warhammer role-playing game, and I will send it to the magazine, so they will pay me for my amazing work, because I was self-confident for my whole life. And actually, they published the work. They paid me money. And I said, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm writing role-playing stuff. They are paying me for that. This is the best I can do in my life. And I started writing more and more and more. And at the same time, this magazine said, guy, you are writing too fast. We will not publish everything that you are doing. Slow down, dude. I was young. I got my dream. So I said, okay, so I will start my own magazine about role-playing games, and I can publish everything that I write. And that I started Pret-a Games company, and we were releasing a magazine about role-playing games, and I was writing the scenarios, I was writing the advices for the game masters, and it went for years. It was not selling, it was terrible, but I was learning, and I was stubborn, and I was trying to grow the company. We started releasing role-playing games. They were not successful, and then we did a successful game finally. And at some point, I accidentally started playing board games, and I created board game one and then second board game. They were all terrible, but somehow they were selling. There was no competition whatsoever back then in Poland. We were post-communism, as you mentioned. There was no board game. There was no Avalon Hill game. There was no this amazing stuff that people had in Western countries. So even though my board games sucked, they were selling very, very well. So I saw potential for growth of the company, and I started learning. So then I bought so many board games. I started playing Citadels and Kingdoms and all these classic games that we know today. And for me, they were new. And I was self-educating and going to different conventions and learning. And then the big break for me is 2007, when we invest every single penny we have to pay for the trip for the Essen. And we go to the Essen. We've got a very small booth, the cheapest possible booth. And we went there with Hiroshima Hex, designed from my friend Michael Oracz, and it hit big. We found the partners from friends and different countries. We sold out at the show, and suddenly we got money. We had international contacts, so we see that there is a potential. And in that moment, we switched the gears in the whole company. So till 2007, we were mostly focused on releasing role-playing games, and we were experimenting board games. And then 2007, we go to Essen, we have a huge success. I see this is the future of the company. We stopped investing in role-playing games. We switched the gears for board games. And then since then, every single year, we were going to Essen with the more or less success. And here we are many years later. That, as you mentioned, many people have no freaking clue that I was starting with role-playing games. Nobody knows that I was doing Warhammer. I released in Poland expansion for Warhammer role-playing game, which is illegal these days. But back then, many years ago, Poland was not part of the United Union, EU. In UK, you have now Brexit. It was before Poland even had entry to EU, and we released the Warhammer expansion. Hawkshead, who had back then rights, said this is a good expansion, and it is like not super legal, but whatever. So yes, I had a huge past in role-playing games, and now I'm known as a board gamer.
So, one of the greatest humans who has ever lived, Jurgen Klopp, was describing how to build a football team, and he described it as building the aeroplane while you're flying it. And so, as a designer, you can design games, and they can be terrible, and it doesn't really matter. But as a publisher, you need to build the plane while flying it, because if you fail, well, then there's the company gone. How was it for you being a publisher and, going from, publishing your own little role-playing magazine to being a publisher? Did you make a lot of mistakes? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Do you think you have a natural ability for that?
So I have the natural ability to survive in a chaos, that's for sure. And for us, it was all discovering how to print board games, how to print the tokens, where to build prototypes. And we were discovering from the scratch. Besides, it was many years ago, before internet was strong, before there was a Kickstarter, before there was a YouTube. And on top of that, in Poland, there was no culture of board gaming whatsoever. I didn't have any other publisher that I could reach and say, hey, I'm young Ignacy, would you share with me some advices on that? No, we were doing super crazy stuff, printing games we were printing first edition of Neuroshima Hex and the Essen as well. So the second printing for Essen as well in the company that had no clue about the board games. They never did board game, and their employees were learning how to produce board game with us. I was at the manufacturer location for hours, and we were discovering how these machines work, how to make the paper being glued to the cardboard so it has a board, how to cut the tokens. We were all having great fun, and these board games the first ones were terrible. Nothing was fitting the sheets, and they were not very well cut off from the sheets. It was terrible, but we had a great time. For us, it was discovering the new industry, and this is the truth for Poland. Here in Poland, I'm known as the person who did the first board game convention, who released the first Polish board game, who did the first Polish vlog about board games. I was discovering the whole industry here. While in America or in the UK or in France, obviously it was a culture with a tradition of years, right? And in Poland, always crazy stuff. Here in Poland, I recorded a 40-part, be with me, 40-part series of 1 hour long videos. So it is altogether 40 hours of content about the history of portal games. And I was discussing all these stories and anecdotes from the past. And here in Poland, people find it as one of the best stand-ups, because the stories I'm talking about, what we were doing as a young, crazy dudes who were just trying to make it, there was ongoing adventure. Now, obviously, I have 40 people working at Portal Games. I have my logistic department. I have my production department. I have everybody, right? But back then, it was me and Michael Oracz, two artists trying to become, entrepreneurs.
And so you went to Essen. So when I got into games, the internet was already up and going. There was the Dice Tower. I kind of knew what to expect from my first Essen. Was that the same with you, or did you get there and go, wow, there's this big industry that's much bigger than I ever expected?
My first Essen, I was born in a very small city in Poland, and I didn't have any big experiences internationally, generally speaking. And my first Essen, I came to the hall, I saw the crowds, the noise, the publishers, the games, and my brain shut down. I'm seriously, I got scared. Suddenly, my hard drive erased. I didn't know who was Rio Grande, I didn't know who was Bruno Faidutti, everything. It was a so big shock for me. And out of super accident, in this huge hall, I bumped into Angus Abrason. He worked back then for Leisure Games, one of the biggest UK stores. And I knew him somehow from some emails, I don't know. And I said, Angus, can I spend a day with you? And literally, guys, the whole day I was going along with Angus Abrason. he was doing purchases for leisure games for the store. So he was visiting one publisher after another publisher doing purchases for the store. And I was with him like a scared, crazy kid who has too much to cope with. There's so many emotions, so many games, so many colors, so many people. And the whole day I was with him. I think that for him, this experience was very weird. That the kid from Poland is, almost holding him for the hand. But it was it. It was, for me, it was big. And then the next year, I came to Essen once again as a private person, but I knew what I expect. And then next year, the third year, my third Essen was, okay, we are ready as a publisher. Let's make another step. So for 2 years, I was just, experiencing this amazing thing. And as back then, there was no YouTube, or at least it was not that popular. So I didn't know what to expect. I just came there and I said, oh my God, this is heaven. And I just, erased everything from my brain.
So, can you give us an overview, sort of from being in the shower and having an idea to having a box with components and cards in that someone like me can play and lose at? What is your game design process from sort of beginning to end?
Yeah, so I said in a very many interviews, game design is an ongoing process of frustration, because you have these, some notes, you have some ideas how to start. And then you cut down the prototype, it doesn't work, so you get this feedback, you change, you cut down the prototype again, it doesn't work. And it takes these 6-7 months of ongoing, not working, stupid prototype. And when it's finally ready, and you would be happy, but you already hate it, you are tired, you are done with this stupid thing, and you pass it to the DTP, desktop the publishing, they do the artwork. Then you have to check the proofs, and you are already tired and you hated the game, but they ask you to check everything if everything is okay. And then when you get this final box, maybe you will smile, but you are doing another game because it is 1 year later. The process for me, of course, it is different for different games, but in most cases I do games very slow. I put a ton of research on them. So in many interviews I said I read books, I read comic books, I watch movies to immerse myself into the theme. And then I started working, and I work very fast in terms of the prototyping. Like I don't do much of the preparation. I use all these small cards. I just take a pencil, write something, and play test and play test and play test. And I also play test very quick in terms of the design. I have no clue how the scoring works. I have no clue what the actions of the players are. I don't know how the production phase works. Anyway, I'm already playtesting some part of the game. And these parts that I have no clue how they will work, I just role play. I say, okay, in this situation, probably players would get 3 woods and 2 stones. I have no clue what's the rules, but let's assume I will get them. And I'm having these resources and I play. So for all the things that I have no clue how they work, I just role play and move on and move on. And I always teach young designers, don't overthink, don't over prepare the prototype, don't wait to start playtesting. Start playtesting on the thing. The famous things I was showing in the seminars was the prototype for the 51st State. That was one of my first card games I designed. 51st State. I was driving car to home. I had this idea just like that. Just I was passing the gas station and I get this idea. I ran into the house. I took a pencil and some paints, and I painted a few cards just like immediately. I cut them down. Next day, I went to the gaming club. We had a gaming club in the city, and with these 7 cards, I put them on the table with my playtest and said, "Hey, imagine this, bam, bam, bam." It was like that. Do you like it? He said, "Yes, I like it." Okay, I will finish it. And then I started designing the whole game. So start even with just few elements and playtest.
So what for you is the crux, is the center of a good game?
For me, choices. Like you have to, in every single moment of the game, you have to see like I can do so many things. All of them are interesting, and I feel this pain. Like, what should I do? And this is true for Robinson Crusoe. Like you have all these problems on your head, and you have to survive. And what we should do? And you play detective, and you have all these choices. We should follow this lead or this lead, and you have this discussion and arguing at that table, and it's amazing. And then you look at the Imperial Settlers, and you have hand of 5 cards, and each of them you would like to have in your table, but you don't have enough resources, and you have made choices. So what I want from the players, to have choices, hard choices every moment of the game, and because they make you engage, they make you think all the time. Should I do it this way or that way? Then after the game finishes, you say, I should do it different way, and you want to play again. So choices.
So it's really. I was doing a bit of research for this interview, and I went and looked at your Robinson Crusoe GameFound page because I knew it was a big campaign, but I couldn't quite remember how much it was, and it's $2 million. That's a lot of money. So why did you decide? Because Portal was never a company that did crowdfunding. And now you, with Robinson Crusoe and now your current project, 11, you're going to GameFound and you're doing the crowdfunding thing. What was the decision behind that?
Yeah, the market is changing. I was very vocal about this 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't have my voice is not enough vocal to anyone pay attention, but I was very vocal that the industry is changing. The part of the publishers who are using Kickstarter are doing amazing things that the regular distributors and the regular publishers are not doing. And I was saying either the distribution will catch up, either the distribution will learn how to compete with Kickstarter, or Kickstarter will win. And today, in today's world, I say Kickstarter won the game. You go to the Board Game Geek page, the biggest page for our industry, and on the main page, what you see, the crowdfunding campaigns that are happening right now. So every customer today, if we go to the Board Game Geek web page, we will see what's interesting on the Kickstarter. Can we see what's interesting in the stores? Not entirely. You have no freaking clue what was released last week, but you know which Kickstarter was starting last week. So my message for years now was that the distribution and the retailers don't figure out how to teach customers about the new releases, about how these new games are released. While Kickstarter is doing this amazing event that says, this is the game, this is review, this is the mock-up of the components, this is the preview, you can play it on Tabletop Simulator already. Like, they are doing everything to educate customers. Retailers, distributors, and the regular publishers are not very good with that. We were for years, we were doing sort of Kickstarter, you probably remember, we were doing pre-orders on our website that were created like Kickstarter. So there was always stretch goals unlocked, even though it was not Kickstarter, but our website. So I was believing in that format that the customer needs to be educated. But then, funny story, which is a terrible story. Last week, I learned that my game Stronghold Undead was released in America. Nobody knows that. I discovered it by accident. How it is possible that our industry cannot educate customers what's in stores right now, what's hot in stores, but we educate so well what's hot on Kickstarter. There is all these Kick track pages, all these reviewers. There are YouTube channels who were born and grew because they're delivering previews of the Kickstarters. What's hot this week? Is it any other YouTuber who's doing that for retail releases? No. And I blame distribution. Like a distributor is the company that buys the stuff from the publisher and puts in the retailer. If distributors cannot figure out how to make this channel healthy, they're losing against Kickstarter, and that's why I'm going with the 11 to Kickstarter. I mean, with 11 is a different story because they're a very niche game, so we needed to double check if there is a demand. But with other games, yes, we will use more and more Kickstarter because this is the way how to educate customer about your product.
And so, were you surprised at $2 million? Did you expect that it was going to be that big, or did you get to the end of the campaign and go, "Wow, that was insane"?
To be honest, we had no clue what to expect. I was super surprised, but I made a very important decision. We went with the GameFound, which is a smaller competitor for Kickstarter, and without going into the details, but the deal breaker for me was that Awaken Realms, who is owner of GameFound and who is known for these big Kickstarters for Etherfield, Tainted Grail, Nemesis, etc., multi-million Kickstarters, they offered us like a course learning. So they told us, we will teach you how to run a good Kickstarter if you go with us. So I said, I value education. I value learning from you. So yes, let's do it. And we signed a contract, and their team was working with my team and me personally every single day, telling us, hey, you should do this update, you should change this artwork, you should add this miniature. They were like, so technically they were running this Kickstarter. Obviously my team was doing that, but we had this support. And so I got my hopes that with their help we will have a great success, but I had no clue what success means. Like we didn't know what will be the success. But we learned a lot. This Kickstarter that started yesterday, the 11, is prepared without their help. but I'm very proud of what my team prepared, and I see all these things that we were learning these few months ago, and now I see them in this new Kickstarter, so the Game Fund campaign. So yes, the value of this Robinson Crusoe, these 2 million looks nice, but my team learning how to do a good campaign, I think in the long run it may be even more than this cash on my account.
So I've got two more questions for you. So the first one is, conventions are back on again, and you go to Essen, and you go to a restaurant in the evening for dinner, and you're coming back from the loo, and you hear a table of gamers, and you hear them say your name. So you go into the corner and you listen to what they're saying. What do you hope that they're saying about you?
Yeah, my dream situation that people perceive me as a funny dude that is design cool games, but besides that he's a funny and nice. So if they talk that for instance they had interaction with me at the booth and I said something funny or did something funny, that would be good. Like back then we go once again to my student days. Actually, I wrote two pieces. I wrote a role-playing game adventure that I shipped to the magazine, and I wrote a stand-up piece that I didn't ship because the magazine that I was writing it for got bankrupt this month back then. So here I am, a role-playing gamer and board gamer, but it could be the fact that I would be a stand-up comedian, maybe. So yes, if people are interacting with me and perceive me as just funny dude and not some high nose, smart ass, big designer, I'll be very happy.
So the last question then. Why is gaming good?
Laughs, funs, trash talk at the table, playing with friends and doing mean things to them and seeing them crying, and it's just a game. I love interaction. Like I love all these games. Obviously, I play all types of games. I play war games, I play Euro games, I play Mr. Feld games, and everyone's games, right? But the ones that I enjoy the most is when we talk a lot. All these Resistance and Avalons and Bonanzas and all these games when I can talk a lot. You guys see that I talk a lot. And trash talk is a big part for me. So we play here in the office every Monday after hours, and this is the time when me and my employees suddenly are becoming just friends. The employees and the owner of the company, and we are just doing mean things to each other, and this is super fun. So I love this interaction with just being with a bunch of the friends, have some fun, laugh, and the game itself. If you are playing El Grande or Cry Havoc or Kemet, it's not the most important. The most important is that I just attacked him and he's losing, and I'm laughing with my evil laugh, and it's amazing.
Brilliant. Well, Ignacy, thank you very much for giving over your time.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.